There are tales that should never be told, and incidents that would have been better left undone. In places far from the light, in the heart of the night, when the wolf returns to the edges of the forest, our destinies intersect with a dark world of secrets and the dead. There is no place to hide, no way to escape. Our footsteps leave their trace, red dust rising into the air, and shadows surround us from every side. We discover that reality can be far more terrifying than we ever expected, and that courage is not only facing death, but facing what we never knew even existed. What you are about to hear is the testimony of someone who was never meant to survive and never expected to see what he saw. Turn off the lights and listen. And now, do you know how we get back to the main road? We are very close to Kingston. There shouldn't be any problem. That is what I hope, and I hope you remember that my gun is now out of bullets. These are the graves. We had arrived, in our foolish decision, at the village cemetery. The pale, sorrowful moonlight spread over the tombstones, creating that dramatic effect known to every imaginative soul. This hanging planet reflects your psychological state. When you sit with your beloved, you feel it is a chandelier hung especially for the two of you, and you recall the words of Romeo and Juliet and the verses of Kais and Layla. When you are happy, you feel it is a face smiling especially for you. But when you are in our bitter situation, the moon reminds you only of sorcerers and dangers, and the warnings of the ancients about the moonlight falling on you while you sleep. Strange how one thing can combine hope, love, poetry, and terror. But enough of this digression. This is not the time for such talk, because there is one small piece of news you must already know. Yes, the car has broken down. It is 1 a.m. After dozens of desperate attempts by Harry, we began to grow drowsy. This wonderful car could not endure all this exhaustion that drained it. In any case, this is not the time to tell him my opinion about his country's automobile manufacturing. Harry said, "Landa and Jimmy. In any case, there is no escape but to wait. We are safe here. They will not leave the hotel room, and nothing will happen to them except great worry about us. But Landa, as I hope, she will think that we are out somewhere in the city where no one takes his wife. In the darkness, we saw something moving. Having fun? What fun? It looked like a man wearing torn clothes with a straw hat hanging over his face, and he was approaching us slowly and confidently until he entered the circle of moonlight. Here Harry's body stiffened, and he screamed in terror, "Rafat, close your window and secure the door lock." And why? The man's hands are completely decayed. He is not a living being. He is one of the zombies. But let us leave this ridiculous situation and how we got out of it, and come with me to something more important. Sitting in a broken car next to a cemetery while a living, rotting corpse approaches you is something normal that could happen to many people. But what is truly strange is what happened to Landa during those hours. Later, Landa said that she sat in her room waiting for us, feeling bored, and little Jimmy had been asleep for 2 hours, fully dressed. Landa says she began to joke to herself, imagining the shameful things we must be doing now in one of Kingston's cheap bars. Then the door was knocked. She stood by the door and asked cautiously, "Who is it?" "Open the door, Landa. It's me." "Oh, Dr. Rafat." "Yes, it's me. And do not ask me how. This is what she saw when she opened the door. The important thing is that I, as she says, entered the room in a hurry, wounded in my arm and face. And I told her that Harry was in trouble and that she had to come because he wanted her and might not see daylight. A very convincing excuse. When she asked me for an explanation, I shouted at her to hurry because there was no time. Then she wrapped Jimmy in a small blanket while he groaned in protest and held him to her chest because he was not prepared to walk. Then she locked the room and went down with him, with me, to the hotel lobby where she told the employee that she might be late. Then she went out with me into the dark street where the dogs were barking. Did you notice anything unusual? Yes, I noticed. Because Landa is a very intelligent woman, she noticed that the wounds on my hands and face had no blood, just cuts in the flesh with no trace of torn blood vessels. But what does all this mean? She asked herself. Then said inwardly, "There is no time for such trivial observations." The zombie was approaching our car very slowly. Harry and I were sitting frozen with terror. Almost all our vital functions had stopped, including digestion, breathing, and thinking. He came close to the car window near my face, and I caught sight of his face just centimeters away, staring at me with interest. I will not describe his features to avoid giving you chills, but you can imagine them. You have seen Dalmas with me in the cafe, and he was quite handsome compared to this brother. Dalmas must not have gone through advanced decomposition yet. The zombie slowly circled the car like a general inspecting his troops, and when he reached Harry's side, he examined him in the same way, then reached for the door handle and pulled it repeatedly, trying to open it without success. Without a word, Harry turned to the back door, which we had forgotten to lock, and pressed the lock button before the zombie could try that door. 10 minutes passed. That thing wandered around the car, with curiosity like a cat seeing a hedgehog for the first time and not knowing how to attack it, or like a primitive man seeing a can of sardines and not knowing how to open it. You can imagine all that. Then it gave up and turned away, disappearing into the darkness. Harry shouted enthusiastically, "We survived! We survived, my boy!" I said without enthusiasm, "It is only a truce." What you have just heard is not the end. It is only part of the picture, a small fragment of a longer chain, where every answer creates a new question. Some secrets are never buried, and some nightmares do not end when you wake up. There are still details yet to be revealed, faces that have not appeared, and truths, which, if you were to know them in full, you would wish you had never known. Until we meet again, remember, not everyone who survived has truly survived.